get started here in a little bit. Gonna let some people join. We'll get started in about 2 more minutes here. Let some more people join before I get started. Y'all hear me okay? Is the volume good? What's going on, y'all? This is Bryson Price. Just came to do a live stream, show y'all some of the tips I've been talking about on Facebook. I've been doing a series called Tuesday Tips for a Better Mix, and just sharing some tips that I have for y'all. And let me know what you think. I'm gonna just run through them, leave some comments. There's kind of a lag in the on the live stream, so I might not see it for about a minute or so, but just go ahead and leave your questions as I'm going through this, and just comments in general, and let's get right to it. So the first tip I have is make sure you don't pick the different synths that you stack together. Make sure they're not all in the same frequency. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear this if you have like a sub pack or something, or good headphones. You might be able to hear this, but this is just the sub playing an F. So it's best not to stack a synth in the same register. So this is what an example of that would be. I think it sounds much better if you go one octave up. It doesn't sound bad with both of them together in the same register, but I just feel like they pop more when you stack them in different octaves. So here, this is playing the same octave. And then this is an octave higher. I just feel like everything blends better when you give everything its own space. But it's not saying that you can't do something like this. But you might have to have your EQs, you just might have to adjust things differently to get everything to fit better and to get everything loud. So the next one here is like some chords that I added to it. Once again, like these chords here are more or less in a similar register to the synth here, but it just sounds better when I put the chords an octave higher. So and this is what it sounds like when the chords were an octave lower. I think it just sounds better like this. It definitely sounds fuller, I think, but that's not saying that you can't make this work. I just think it gives it a different tone, but I mean, it's not like a hard, fast rule, but what you want to try to do is get your different synths playing in different octaves so that they can just blend together. You can make anything kind of work with EQ, but it's just a good thing to keep that in mind throughout your production process, just so that your sounds will pop more. And on this right here, I'm not even using any EQ really, or sidechain compression, so that's just pure blending. Alright, the next one I have for you, that was tip number 1. We're going to go over 5 tips today. So the next tip I have for you here is to do with snares. So, well, I guess anything reverb. So bouncing reverb to audio, I feel like it's a lot more effective than just putting the reverb or delay on that track. So here's an example. We have a snare here. So let's put some reverb on it. And then some delay. So I like the way it sounds when you take this reverb and delay and then you freeze the track, flatten it, so I just freeze and flatten the track, and then I have a separate track here that that is just my reverb and delay. instead of putting it directly onto. Instead of putting it directly on my snare, I can have it here, and then I can process it however I want to, and clear up, like, so the snare is just hitting instead of having the reverb and delay kind of muddy up the snare. So check out what I did here. Sorry, I had the reverb and delay on here. So this is with it on, the track. And then this is whenever I have them separated. Do you hear how it gives it like more of a pop when I separated the reverb and delay track from the snare? I'll let you hear it one more time. So here I have them separated. And then I'm going to play the track with the reverb and delay directly on the snare. Do you hear how it sounds more muddy when it's not separated like that? So that's why I like doing that. And it doesn't have to be just snares. You can do that with anything. So like with synths, like especially with plucks, like plucks can get kind of muddy pretty quick. Or if you want to get creative and do it on a kick, or I mean, it's really, you could do that with anything. Just freeze and flatten the track and then separate the two tracks, and then you can process them differently. Alright, so that was tip number 2, just basically bouncing. Tip number 1, if you missed it, was about layering, stacking different synths in different octaves. Tip number 2 was separating your reverb and delay, or just any effects in general, separating it from the original track, just so you can get more of a clear mix. And then tip number 3 is having a little transient before your snare. Really gives it a lot more pop. And I'll show you an example. So this is without that little. It's just a couple milliseconds long, like it's about 10 to 15 milliseconds before the actual snare is playing. It's just a little blip. So like that's all it is. But here's the original snare with this is the original snare without it. And then this is with it. Let me play that for you one more time. This is without it. And then this is with it. Do you hear how it just kind of gives it more life and pop? And I actually bounced out a couple of examples of how I used it in a beat. Here it is. So here's, I made this little beat, and this is the snare without that little pre-clap or pre-hit, the little transient. This is without it. And this is with it right here. So did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear the difference? So the first track I played, it didn't have that little transient that I added. Here it is again. And then this is with it. So that was tip number 3. Can y'all hear me okay? Am I echoing? How does it sound to y'all? Let me know how it sounds, guys. Is it still echoing? Yeah, man. So, Everin, just to answer your question, that Everin, to answer your question, that is Church Bells. That is actually like a trap sample that I had from probably like 2004 to 2005. No, maybe it was later than that. It's probably like 2008 or 2010 where I got that. It's like an old song, and I just sampled it and it's in there. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry about the delay. I'm really new to OBS and live streaming, so I don't know exactly why it's doing that. But hopefully, as I get better with live streaming, that I'll be able to make this a better experience for y'all. But I'm not sure why it's echoing from right to left right now. But I'm just gonna keep going through this and give y'all tip number 4 here, okay? So I'm gonna delete this. Alright, tip number 4. So I like to use extreme EQs as like a creative effect. I feel like it's really good for that, but the catch is that you have to have something like a limiter, as you see here. The limiter, or like a clipper, or something that just keeps the sound from clipping, because if you don't have this here, so I'm gonna show y'all. Let me just go ahead and go through the sound for y'all here. So it's just a simple, all it is just a saw wave, a basic saw wave. There's nothing else to it. But what I did was add this EQ rack where I mapped some of the frequencies on here, and to give the sound some movement. So you'll see what it does here. So this became this. But without the limiter, the sound is, I mean, I guess it's not clipping now, but if you really turn up the sound to the levels it should be at, well, it is clipping, because on my master I have something to keep it from clipping, but as you see, these levels here, they're clipping. So that's why you want to have a limiter or something on their compressor to keep it from clipping. Alright, so and then a way to take this a step further is you could even, so look what this does, you could turn the gain all the way up, and then you can just freeze this, you freeze the track, turn it into audio. It looks like a brick, but you can, I know like some of the low end is really, it's like too loud, but you could just take an EQ. And because we turn that limiter all the way up like that, it just fattens up the frequencies, and then it's kind of like an art sculpture. Like you start off with a big piece of clay, and then you just start chipping away at it. That's kind of what we're doing here. We turn the limiter all the way up, boosted all the frequencies, but it made things sound fat. But then you can just kind of chip away at what you want and what you don't want. So I hope that gave y'all some insight on something you can do there. So yeah, I don't know. Have y'all used this kind of a rack before, where you boost and you boost frequencies on top of each other and like cut certain frequencies? Let me know in the comments what y'all think. Everin, you said, can I put the channel to mono? I could try that. Let me see if that works. I just put my mic channel to mono inside of the DAW here. I'm not sure if I could do it on the actual interface. I don't know how to do that, but I did it on here, so let me know if that's a little bit better. So yeah, we've gone through 4 tips already. The first one being for layering synths. The second one is bouncing reverb to audio to give your sounds more pop. The third one is to give your snare more pop, just doing a little transient before it so that it hits right before the snare. And then the fourth one is using extreme EQs to get like a more creative sound. So actually, I just showed y'all an example on a single note. But you can also do it on chords too, kind of like this. Oh, I still have my limiter all the way up. Let me turn this down. So that was the 4th tip. Let me get y'all the 5th tip here. Let's see. So tip number 5. Basically just using a little bit of white noise, or any kind of noise, to give a sound more character and to make it sound more alive. Am I still echoing? I feel like I'm really echoing right now. Let me know how it sounds.